Hi, Miles.
Hello, Georgia. How you doing? Am I getting your name right, Georgia?
Very good, Djordje. Yes.
Georgia.
Very good. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for giving me your time to speak to me. So this project that I'm making is all shot on film, and I'm quite interested in film itself. And I know that just wanted to start by talking about the history of piql. And I know, is it piql? Is that how you say it? Or piql?
Yeah,
Okay. I know that you started with a product called Cinnovator. Um,
correct.
and I just wondered if you could just explain about how piql got started and talk a little bit about Cinnovator, if possible.
Sure, sure. Cinovation was started in 2002 by the current MD and founder as well of piql. And at the time, they had the idea of making the world's fastest machine that could print film. So within about 2 years, they researched and developed a machine called Cinnovator that was 100 times faster than any other machine on Earth, pretty much doing the same kind of work. And then because of that, they could make a very good business case, and the business grew pretty rapidly from Hollywood to Bollywood, where all the major studios were buying the Cinnovator machines, and then these were produced in a few series. Yet, because of the revolution and going from analog to digital in about 2009, 2010, that was sort of the cap of the market to which they could operate using that technology and that approach. So even though there is still, I think, around 25 Cinnovators around the world that actually are still in operation, they had to transition the business to something else. And then sort of a very good idea was, if they have already gained a lot of competence in these kinds of imaging technology and light technology and so on, and they had a lot of competence in film, why don't they use film as a storage medium? If you take a look at different storage mediums, you have the cave paintings that are still there after thousands and thousands of years. You have papyrus that still has a very long life. You have film, the original film from 1882. You can still sort of read a motion picture from it and see the files. And then film happened to be a very good storage medium for long-term storage of data. And then uh, another sort of great thing is that when you write something on film, you cannot manipulate it, you cannot change it, right? It's a write once, read many medium that gives that authenticity and integrity. That if you store something on the cloud, somebody can always hack the file. If you're a bank, you have the storage on the cloud. A hacker could get into your system, could modify some information that would cause you to lose integrity, authenticity, and so on. Same goes with paper. Same goes with a lot of different storage mediums. Whereas, once you have something on the pickle film, with, of course, a lot of securities on the way, and that problem is solved.
I mean, I guess I just want to move on and talk about what piql are doing now in the present more, and how that came about, and how you realised that there was a need to store digital information on film, and how you stepped in with technologies that you had, thinking that you could achieve that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, every 2 years, the data continues to double, and if you look at it, we call this a data universe as to the amount of information there is in the world, and you know, it was zero point 0.9 zettabytes, because when you get into bytes, you have megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, and then zettabytes, and then if you look at it 7 8 years ago, it was less than 1 zettabyte. By 2020, it's expected to reach 44, 45 zettabytes. So you really have a big hockey stick curve in terms of how data grows. People take pictures, take videos, send emails, and so on. And then if you look at all this entire bubble that continues to grow, about 5% requires ultra secure data storage, meaning that the information is so valuable that you cannot afford to manipulate it or to lose it. On the other hand, if you look at another 10% of that bubble, you have data that requires long-term storage. This could be data of cultural significance, like historical data, judicial data, and so on and so on. So then, from this expanding universe, you have a lot of information and a huge actually market to work with and to provide a service to really protect the data. And if you look at information from the viewpoint of a DNA, which it is, it's extremely important to keep the DNA of the world for future generations.
In this 5% of very secure information, I know that you're working specifically with different countries to secure specific information that they want stored, whether that's sort of like maybe like in terms of their legacy, historic information. What sort of information are countries looking to store with you, or individuals, as you say, that this may move on to?
Sure. So we as piql, we have 16 partners around the world that are present and providing services in over 20 countries. And different countries and different organizations have different procedures. For instance, from our experience, if you are talking to particular industries, they have legal obligations to store their files only within their own premises. So if you talk to a national defense authorities, they typically have a regulation and a protocol to keep all of their files within their building, within their facility, and so on. On the other hand, you have some countries that happen to be very politically unstable, and they have these policies where they have to ship their data outside to another place that is much more safe because of political stability and so on. So really, in terms of giving generic answers as to who does what and how, it's hard to say because every single client has a very specific set of requirements that they need.
Maybe I know obviously it's confidential information, but I know that Mexico has stored some information in your vault. Are you able to talk about what sort of, rather than specifics, but what sort of information they're storing?
Sure. So I can tell you just the highlights that we have that have been published on the internet. So National Archives of Mexico and Brazil have decided to store their most valuable data, meaning the Constitution and really the high value historical files on the piql film in our Arctic World archive, for the purpose of ensuring that the content that is saved there can withstand up to 500 years longevity that we provide.
As far as I understand, Svalbard is a demilitarized zone, and it's a treaty signed by 42 countries, banning military and their equipment from the island. So I just wondered if you could talk about the location and then the vault itself and their significance, like both their significance.
Sure. So Svalbard, we figured would be an amazing location to have the first digital vault in the world for the most important information, because it's first of all demilitarized, as you said. So nobody can really go there and invade or do any crazy things that we see, unfortunately, happening everywhere else. And then Svalbard has actually amazing characteristics for long-term preservation. What that means is that you have permafrost, which is this frozen layer of soil that's been frozen for God knows how many years, and there the temperature is very suitable for the longevity of the film. And third is that there already is a Svalbard seed vault, which has been in existence for quite a few years, which stores all the important seeds from all the varieties of plants around the world. And then we thought, okay, there wouldn't be any better place to create a similar vault, just to make sure that you save the digital documents.
Is the vault? Did you have to dig under the ground, like excavate, or is there an existing mine now or something that you've used?
Yeah. So at Svalbard, there used to be a lot of coal mining activities, and then those coal mines were out of business, of course. And now what we use is we use the existing infrastructure of the mines, like they did with the seed vault, in order to create a new environment for the digital data vault called the Arctic World Archive.
These are things that have been put in place for not just the near future but the far future, and like with quite significant changes in mind to the world. I'm just sort of like maybe putting the emphasis on this idea of us not really having a concept of what that might be in the future, and really like a time that far into the future is we have no idea what that's going to be like. So, I mean, I'm just wondering if you had any sort of thoughts on that.
No, that's a very, very, very good question, Miles. And what we can say is, of course, we are as far in any estimations as anyone else could be as to how everything will look like in 50 years, not even 500 years down the line. But that's exactly why having such a vault is important, is to make sure that whatever interests happen in between in terms of manipulating the information that's publicly available on the internet or on other sources, it's very important to have an anchor point that is guaranteed, authentic, and has integrity, and make sure that what has happened at that point in time is completely irreversible, or nobody can change it or tamper with it, and so on. So of course, while we cannot speculate what will happen in 100 years or 500 years from now, it's very good that we still have storage mediums from which we can read and actually be able to see, okay, this is the truth. This is, the truth captured in a time capsule that nobody can tamper.
I remember I didn't really ask you about the technical process of how you write the film and then how you read the film. I wonder if you could give a quick overview of that.
Sure. That's a good question. So we have developed, as part of 27 million euros, we have developed Writer, which is an industrial photosensitive machine that can write any kind of information on the film. We have developed a reader that can retrieve or read the information from the film. Now, if it's just visual information, as in like text documents stored on the film, then it just enlarges the files. Whereas if it's digital, meaning this high definition QR code, then the machine has an algorithm that it follows to sort of decipher what's on the frame and what's on the frames. So we have developed those two machines. They are. Would you want to see the picture?
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just pull it up. You should be able to see
Okay, I can see it now. Yeah.
The PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here is essentially how the writer looks like.
Okay.
Of course, when you open the lid, you have a film transport and all of these segments that sort of you put the film reel on it, and then it automatically does everything. This is for the writing process, and then we have a reader that has that conducts the reading process. And then to show you, to sort of visualize this for you, how the film looks like. So you have So you have a film reel that looks like this, where you can store visual files. So something that you just need a magnifying glass to read, and also these high definition QR codes.
Okay.
See, if you see this guy here, that frame, this is pretty much. Let me play this for you. So here you can see this is one small frame.
Yeah.
That is 4K resolution, and then if you just zoom in one corner, you see that it's really high dense 2-bit presentation.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And then, so the contrast of each dot correspond. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look like that's binary. Is that
Correct. So it's if you imagine, if you actually not imagine, but if you just take a look at, for instance, this business card that I have. Let me close the presentation.
okay?
So see, like a QR code
Yeah.
from a business card. So that's the exact same thing it is, except for the fact that on this little film strip, let me show this to you. Sorry,
That's all right.
I have it right here.
Oh wow.
So that on one of these little film strips, I don't know if you can see, but this
Yeah.
is like visual information. It's text.
Okay.
If I bring it closer, you see more clearly that it's pages.
Yeah.
And then if you see here, these are these high definition QR codes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very, very high resolution. Of course, you cannot even see it. If you're here with your eyes, and this is sort of a piece of a film.
Okay. And you're saying that's 4K resolution that
Correct.
it records it in.
Correct.
So I guess the images because 4K is fairly large for video, but in terms of print material, you can go a lot larger. So I guess there is a sort of downscaling involved in the images on the film.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, we are able. Ultimately, it depends on the capacity of the file.
Yeah.
So the capacity of one film reel is at the moment 120 gigabytes.
Okay.
So I mean, if you have a movie, if you have a very large file that you want to store uncompressed, you just need whatever the number of reels.
Okay.
You don't have to limit the size and the quality of file because of storage medium. Storage medium, it can take pretty much any resolution, and it just needs more units to store.
I see. I've got you. Well, thanks. That's a fairly thorough overview of the technical process. In terms of reading the information again, how do you go about doing that?
So we have a few different ways in which we do this. Of course, depends on how clients prefer to store the files. Some of them prefer to have a physical box with them, and then when they need to retrieve, if they don't have our hardware, they need to send us their box. We retrieve the file for them. Some of them want us to have the file in our own warehouse management system, and they're at their request, which is, by the way, done in a very user-friendly experience way. So you just log into your client profile. There you can search any file that you have. So just search any metadata you have inserted, and then based on that you select retrieve, based on which we make that file available for you to download, or we send it to you on a hard drive or whatever is preferred method for you.
Okay, great. And hypothetically, in the future, what happens if you lose that hardware to be able to read the algorithm again?
That's a very good question. I have to show you this little demo strip again to answer that question. So if you see here, this is the first slide where it says piql,
Okay.
right? And this is where every piql film begins in the same way. So from the first slide, from the first frame, you have a table of content, which is just visual information. So that means that you just need a magnifying glass and you can read, okay, on this piql film, you have the information from whatever bank, for instance. And then it says to retrieve the files. Actually, it says on this film, you have only visual files for which you need a scanner or you need hardware of that type to enlarge to be able to view it. If you have digital files, the film will include the source code of the open source application that you need to employ in order to retrieve the QR codes. what am I saying in a very simple terms? Here you have instructions. So if there is no piql in 100 years from now, you have instructions. You just need any computer. You literally just read this and type in the source code of the application, and then you develop the application that can make sense of these QR codes, right? So, you develop an application that can make sense of this QR code. What happens then is you just need to take a picture of the frame, drag and drop it into the application, and then the file is rendered to the original file.
Okay, great. So that's
Has that been clear?
Yeah, that's a fairly comprehensive failsafe that you've built into it, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, how far is this protected against, a complete loss of language? Like, say if another species came along, I guess in the way that we decoded the Rosetta Stone, would it be able to be decodable at all in that way? If someone came to it and had no computer language.
Of course, that's a good question. I mean, we see that in some applications, there are people who like the information that they have to be stored in multiple languages. So if it's an international organization and they have quite a bit of files, they would like to store a copy in English, and then a copy in French, or a copy in Chinese, so some of the really major languages, so that the risk of not being able to translate something in the future is greatly minimized. But again, it's the assumptions that we have sort of considered. Okay, what happens if this and that? But then we cannot with certainty guarantee, nor anyone else can with certainty guarantee what's going to happen, right?
In terms of slowly building up this collection of archive material from countries across the world, I mean, how do you see this sort of cultural impact?
Our mission is to preserve the most important information against any logical or illogical threat, right? So, in case of a major war, which could happen any minute, where some national archive anywhere in the world gets completely destroyed and bombed, they most likely have some information that is not really available on the internet or anywhere else. So we see that what the service that we provide, which is to store the most important information in a doomsday-free area, we see that only has a positive value to bring to the cultural or any kind of heritage there is. And we see more and more the need for such a service. As I mentioned, when the WannaCry virus hit a few weeks ago, we received quite a bit of responses and inquiries from private consumers who were really scared that whatever they've been collecting for years, either as family photos, or you have people who are passionate for genealogy, who spend decades and decades of really hard and intensive work to sort of understand the culture and lineage and kinship and all of that, and that gets destroyed. So in terms of cultural significance and cultural value that we bring to the table, we think that we have a lot to offer.
How do you foresee the future of piql? I mean, what your aims going into the future? Like, how do you want to grow?
That's a good question. So in the next, currently there is 16 piql partners around the world who provide the service. By 2026, we hope to be in over 100 countries. We hope to be providing services on a very, very serious and a leading way around the world. And of course, we have invested a lot of time. We have invested a lot of energy into this, and we would like to see that it's growing really fast, like we experienced with some instances like a launch of Arctic Coral Archive, and so on. So that is the motivation, and we will get there.
My one last question is: when I finish this film, can I store it in your vault on film?
Of course. No, I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing it.
Great.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Miles.
Djordje. Been a pleasure
Cheers.
speaking to you.
Likewise. Pleasure
Right.
was mine.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
You too.